Belen Wagaw. That is one of the most unique names I have ever heard, but it's perfect because it really matches the uniqueness that she is. What's up? This is Maurice Philogene. We're going to get into another episode of the Try Life On podcast. I was able to interview my friend, Blen. Blen is an amazing human. She actually grew up in Ethiopia. I've been tracking her for quite some time and had to get her to come on the podcast because she has had the professional and personal journey that I know a lot of you out in Try Life on Land are wanting to have or thinking about having. Although she grew up in Ethiopia, which is dope in and of itself. I spent some time in Ethiopia in my time. She went to school in the United States, ended up working for SAP, I believe in Germany. SAP is a massive company. Was a great experience, but she wasn't feeling, just like a lot of you, she wasn't feeling this definition of success, this social definition of success or societal definition of success that seems to be put on us, where we have to get a certain title, make a certain amount of money, etc. So she went on to become an entrepreneur through LinkedIn, virtual, through LinkedIn, setting up her own business where she does copywriting and helps people develop their own personal brand. But she took it even a step further, which is what I love. She took the leap of faith and left Germany, left the US, went to Germany, left Germany, and ended up in Lisbon, Portugal about a year ago because she wanted to live a lifestyle she did not need a vacation from. And that's why I wanted to track her down. She's having the journey. And just like me, where I am transitioning certain parts of my life, let's say to the Mediterranean, I've been spending a lot of time in places like Cyprus and Lebanon. It's not an easy transition. So we got into the fact that there are emotions that come with leaving one world and trying to integrate and create another world for yourself. It's difficult. It's really difficult. But what's even more difficult if you just allow status quo to define who you are for the rest of your life. So interviewing Blen was actually, it was kind of an honor for me. She feels like tribe to me. She's one of my peoples now, and I can't wait to sit down with her in Lisbon and have a cup of coffee. But before that, you guys get the opportunity to hear what her journey has been like, how you can apply that to your own journey, whether it's staying in corporate and experimenting with life and opportunity, or leaving it all together and becoming an entrepreneur, or just wanting to pick up your family and move to a different location in the world. It's really eye-opening, just kind of what she's been through. And at such a young age, I think she's quite younger than me, but regardless, please enjoy this wide-reaching conversation with my friend Blen. She lives in Lisbon, Portugal now, and she is definitely trying life on her way. And I'm so pleased that she was able to come on the podcast. So without further ado, listen to my homegirl, Blen. And like we were just saying offline, holy smokes, it's good to meet you finally.
I know. Even though I feel like I already know you, which is the power of I read your stuff all the time, so I feel like I know you,
Yeah,
which is weird. So
that's the power of social media now. Where are you today?
I'm in Lisbon, Portugal, in my home office.
You're in
Uh,
Lisbon, Portugal.
yes.
Which is, it's part and parcel to the reason why I'm tracking you down. But in the lifestyle design community or what have you, or in the Try Life On community, and it's really growing. There are a lot of people who want to do what it is that you did, which I'll let you tell the story of where you are, how you got there, why you got there, and maybe even push you into the emotions of it a little bit, because I'm going through a bit of it myself with making a transition from the US to Cyprus and Lebanon and what have you. But give people a sense of how you are in Portugal and why you got there.
Yeah, there are a few ways I could take this, but
Yeah.
prior to Portugal, I was living in Germany for many years.
Mm-hmm.
Around 7 or 8 years. I am not German. I'm actually Ethiopian. So born and
Mm-hmm.
raised in Ethiopia. Then I spent also some time in the US. And then life eventually took me to Germany where I was based. And then I started like my professional journey and all of that. I went
Mm-hmm.
on a very typical career path, which I enjoyed while it lasted. But from the location piece, why Portugal was I had visited once, fell in love with the country, fell in love with how I felt. There's something about Portugal that's really special. And in the back of my mind, there was always the idea of what it would be like to move. But for quite a few reasons, I couldn't at the time. But as soon as I could, and I had a plan towards it, I moved last year. So I've been here 13 months now. I'm a full-time resident now.
Awesome.
My tax number and everything. So
You
yeah.
got you got your tax number, you son of a gun. What were you doing? I just started that process too in Cyprus, which I'll tell you about. But what were
Yeah.
you doing from a work perspective in the US, and where were you and how long were you doing it?
So US, I was back in the day. That was for college, right? For work, I
Okay.
was mostly in Germany, and I held different roles, mostly all around like customer success, from all the
Hmm.
way from enablement to comms and all of this, like at a really big corporation. And then I went to a more of a scale up before actually jumping into like the entrepreneurship, which we can get to. But
Yeah.
uh, for the most part of my career, I was like an enterprise tech at a company called SAP, which I'm like
Yeah, yeah,
100,000
of
people.
course.
And I was, in the loved it while I was there, uh,
Hmm.
until I didn't. So yeah,
How long were you there?
8 years almost, seven
You
to
were
eight
there
years.
8 years, yeah. Which is where I find most people are at least from a coaching perspective, most people are middle career, like at the 8 to 13 year point, and they're starting to have that mental thought of, is there's nothing wrong with the company. Like I work for Accenture for
Yeah.
25 years, you work for SAP. You guys were clients of ours a lot. We used
Yeah.
a lot of your stuff, right?
You're our partner. I mean, you're like our main partner. So
Yeah, yeah. So there's nothing wrong with it inherently, but people seem to get to this point in their career and in their life journey, if you will, in their life book of like, is this all I'm supposed to be doing? Or, man, I'm kind of pressing repeat every day, doing the same thing. It's getting a bit groundhoggish. Is that what happened to you? Was there some epiphany moment or something that happened at the career that pushed you into making a change?
yeah, there were a few moments, but the funny thing is, overall, I always say that I really thrived in that environment. It wasn't even that it wasn't going well, but I feel like I understood what I should do in order to keep progressing. And
Hmm.
so one of my main values is growth and progress. So even in that corporate construct, I was like, okay, if I pull this lever, if I work hard in this area, I know what I could do. But
Right, right.
when I kind of saw what does making it look like in that environment,
Hmm.
people that were like at the top, that were earning all of the money, all of these things, I realized that's not actually what I if that's the best I can have, like the best didn't appeal to me that much. And of
Hmm.
course, I got to see like a ton of like the politics, like a lot of even if you put in a lot of effort to the things that were right, sometimes
Yeah,
didn't move in the right direction, right? So I
yeah.
just felt I don't want to do this for 20, 30, however many years you hit until you retire.
So what was the carrot at SAP? So and again, when I talk, I always like to caveat when I talk about companies because I don't crap on companies.
No,
What I say is there's nothing wrong with 9 to 5, or there's nothing wrong with a corporate entity. There's something wrong with our inability to leverage that experience for what we need out of it, or what have you. So the carrot at Accenture when I was there was, work your way up, analyst, consultant manager, manager, senior manager, then you're a partner, which meant an enormous amount of responsibility, sales targets, and things of that nature. When I looked at going through the typical progression and getting to partner, what I saw was more responsibility, not more freedom. So that was the shift. I had a mental shift in 2013, and I stopped going after promotions in favor of just getting the highest salary, virtual jobs, and then buying real estate on the outside. What
yeah.
was the carrot? Like what was presented as success within your corporate experience? What was it that you were looking at that you were like, yeah, I don't think that's going to work for me?
Yeah. It's funny because the carrot is similar. So you have grade levels, right? You have T levels is what they call them. So you go from like associates to junior to senior, let's say like some kind of like a director, VP, and then gets like executive track. So from T1 to T5,
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere from like T3 is like where middle management starts, then there's T4 to T5, and after that you get into like executive level track where of course like
Right.
pay is really good. And SAP has just like great benefits in general where
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
not like again, I don't know how Accenture in terms of like hours if it's ton, but depending on what role you have, you also don't have to work a ton of hours. But
Right.
the responsibilities grow for sure as those levels go up, but the red
Mm-hmm.
tape also increases like crazy. And what I saw is the more powerful you are on paper,
Mm-hmm.
actually playing a different power game where you're getting stuff done very slowly by interacting with that senior exec that actually wants to move this piece because they're, so that I guess when you're like almost smaller in the hierarchy, you can get
Yeah.
more real
You can
stuff
get
done.
more done. You're more mobile. You're more nimble, I should say, not mobile. You're more
Yeah,
nimble.
you're
Yeah.
much more nimble. And the rest is this, when I saw, oh, actually, you run an organization of 1,000 people, but
Mm-hmm.
you can't really decide what you want to do because you know the bigger agenda that's going to be driven in 2 quarters. So you don't really
Mm-hmm.
want to move this thing because you know it's useless, but you can't communicate it with anyone because that's the information you. So it's very much like I joke that it was like House of Cards without the
Yep.
murders. Is what I like. Again, I hope that anyone, my old SAP compatriots, like I think it's probably like that for any big company. You just, the more successful you get, the less you can do, which is very
Yeah.
it's a paradox, right? Because
It is a paradox.
you have status for sure, and your
Yep.
name carries weight. And when you're
Yep.
copied under an email, that's the carrot. The carrot is when your name is mentioned and we're in an email thread, oh, people will reply to you pretty quickly because like you're Maurice, you're like the senior
Yep.
VP of this like platform thing.
Yep.
So and it feels really nice because when you like struggled for like 10 years, when you're like, I couldn't get anything done, I didn't have this extra benefit, and I didn't have like, I wasn't like going first class, whatever. So you have all of these nice perks,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also very much so that the stuff you do is very very dictated by like the higher agenda that might
Yeah.
be good for like business itself or customers.
And for me, it was just too much posturing. I just didn't like the posturing. And the higher I got, the more I realized I needed to play a game. And then in 2013, 14, 15, I started working for the right boss.
Yeah,
She got it. And she had an idea that I was doing a lot of stuff on the outside, like being a police officer and building businesses and real estate. But I would always get her the outcomes that she wanted. So she would look out for me and stuff.
yeah.
And I told her, her name is Elaine, and she knows how I feel about her. I told her, she was like, yo, why don't you enter the partner track? And I need to be clear. I didn't turn down partner 4 times. I turned down going into the partner track 4 times. And she said, well, why wouldn't you want to make partner? And I said, Elaine, yeah, that's not what I need. What I need is 40 hours a week. I'll bust my hump for you. Uh, whether I do 1 hour a day or 16 hours the next day, just let me run it on my own kind of thing. And I asked her specifically, please shield me from leadership. I just don't even want to be known. I don't want a sales target. I don't want people chasing after me. I don't want people looking for me. I didn't want to run teams anymore, but I specifically said, whatever the outcome is that you want, that's what I'm going to get. Like, give me that. And she let me work for her for 7 years. And then late in my career, she comes up to me one summer, I think the summer of 2020, because I retired in 21. She goes, well, all right, so what do you want to do for your life this year? And I looked at her and she goes, oh shit, you're done, aren't you? And I'm like,
Oh,
yeah.
really? Did she see
Yeah.
it in your eyes or
She could
something?
see it. She could see it because I was just kind of running out of reasons to be there because I was making outcomes and stuff, but I had all this other stuff going on the outside. Anyways, but so, I think your description of that journey or what it was like within your corporate entity and my description is probably what a lot of people are going to hear on this and be like, damn, I'm going through the same thing. And people are scared to move on from that. So how did you move on from that? Was that the entrepreneurial side that you moved on to?
Yeah. And I want to say one thing about your situation with
Yeah.
Elaine that you had, because I think what you were able to do is special on both ends. One, you recognize what you wanted to do and you had a vision, which I think the bigger issue is like sometimes I think people don't really ask themselves what they want
Yeah.
or they don't really question their environment in general. Then you had a boss that you can then take that vision and say, you know what, I'm telling you, I'm gonna work hard, I'm good, but do this. And then she was willing to accommodate you. So that's like really powerful.
Yeah, yeah,
I
she
would
was.
argue that if more people were want to question their environment and then find the right, you know, situation at their company to achieve it, they could do it. And
They could, yeah.
one thing I've done is also I've been very intentional that the team, or at least the manager you work for, really does matter, because in that corporate setting, or in, you know, whatever, whether you want to progress quickly or not, or whether you want to learn, it really does matter a lot to do with your manager. So I've been really lucky to have, you know, two or three really impactful ones.
Right on. That's a good point. Solid point.
Yeah, so please, whatever you do, just like make sure you like your boss likes you, they're like not even like you, that they want the best for you because you're doing good work for them, you know.
Yeah,
If you have like,
yeah.
because some are not like that, you might be doing great work, they don't recognize it, they don't want you to outshine them, there's like some weird ego stuff sometimes, right? So but for me, I had been munching on the idea of what is the life I want to build for myself, and like what is the ideal day, all of these things. And
Yeah.
I guess long term, I was like, if I stay in the 9 to 5, it needs to also change. I was like, okay, I want to do things that I enjoy more, or, you know, kind of remove myself from like this huge corporation. So that was like my plan A type of thing. The entrepreneurial thing, I was like, would it's like maybe like in 5 years. I didn't think it would come so soon, which was 2022. But I had a really like, the last year was, I just saw so many things. I was like, okay, this is kind of like rubbing me the wrong way. I don't want this for the next 5 years. So I think when you train yourself to also see what are the other opportunities, and I'd also been showing up on LinkedIn, I was like, okay, I know personal branding will matter. I was posting more. And then I would get people being like, oh, can you do what you're doing for me? Can you write for me? And all of that. And I said, oh, okay, there's actually a monetizable source. So while I was working and I had left SAP and I was at a different company, I actually tried like to have like, not even tried, I had like a side income, which was, what if I was to help people with writing, ghostwriting with their personal brands? And I was like, oh,
Oh, okay.
right, because I know you say that a lot, Maurice, like don't make very impulsive emotional decisions to do with your life as well. You were very strategic and
Yeah.
you built up this track, and that's why you felt comfortable going. For me, it was like I did not build it up like you did. I wasn't able to like fully retire. It's like, you know, that's still, I have a long ways to go, but I knew that I had skills that the market would pay for outside of a safe employer. And I think a lot of times people that have never received digital money, online money, or outside of their 9 to 5, something unlocks when someone pays you outside of your 9 to 5. Like, I don't know what it is.
I have to agree. I have to agree, but I want to go back to one point you said because I want to make something clear. So I get it. Like I had this build up and I invested in real estate and did some other things on the outside. So when I got off career highway at age 46, like I never stopped moving. Everything was fine. But I try to emphasize to people, you don't need real estate and other assets to be okay.
No.
No, and you're living proof of it, which is why I was so excited to speak with you, because you can make decisions about your lifestyle. You can orient your lifestyle, let's say, around a virtual job or an entrepreneurial endeavor through LinkedIn or consulting or whatever it is, or even if it's still a brick and mortar job, but picking that brick and mortar job in a country or a city that you truly want to be in so life feels better. I think so many people are stuck on the I need to have millions of dollars to go execute lifestyle, and that's totally false.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I stress that is because you can set your lifestyle up however you want. Even within Accenture, I was taking, before Elaine, I was taking virtual jobs so I could work all over the world, kind of thing. I didn't have a lot of money then. I was just orienting my lifestyle. I talk about the assets in real estate or whatever asset people like, because later down the road, there's going to come a point where you're either not going to want to work, physically can't work, or what have you. So I just wanted to bolster that point. you oriented your lifestyle, made some decisions relative to virtual income. And then the second thing I just wanted to back you up on, the moment I made my first $1,000 coaching through LinkedIn, everything changed. And people overthink it. And it's same like you. Someone reached out to me on LinkedIn DM and said, hey, can you coach me? And I said, coach you on what? They were like, I don't know how you did what you did relative to like real estate and traveling around the world and being virtual and virtualizing my mail and all that. I said, okay. So I just started it. And it was just with PayPal and Dropbox. But everything unlocked the way that you're saying. So what is it that you're doing now virtually so you can give people a sense?
Yeah. Love that story, by the way. I had a
Yeah.
DM, which was like, can you build my personal brand? And can you write for me? Right? Because
Mm-hmm.
my background has been in comms. That's actually what I studied, but also some of the stuff that I've done in corporate was like either heading internal comms. The job that I had before this was leading storytelling for a company. So, making sure that people understand what is the story behind the product or what is the story behind the clients that use the product. So
Mm-hmm.
someone wrote me and said, hey, can you write on my behalf on LinkedIn? And that was my first,
Wow.
couple
Wow.
$1,000s as well, which was like crazy. Never knew. I never started writing on LinkedIn because I knew that there was going to be a direct relation to writing and the money, right? I was like,
Yeah, exactly,
I was like,
exactly,
I
exactly.
know eventually it will be useful, like, because the logic is there. It's like more people knowing you and knowing what you can do
Mm-hmm.
is a good thing, no matter what. When people are
Mm-hmm.
like debating the power of personal branding, I'm like, that's just how easy I explain it. Like your reputation being scaled, right? And more people be like, Maurice is the person that even was like a police officer. If I needed
Mm-hmm.
someone to like coach police officers on real estate, like you're the guy that I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna talk to. So
Mm-hmm.
that was my yeah. That's still primarily how I make my virtual money, but there's a lot of things that I'm like working on as well, which I'll announce in due time. But
I got you. Um, can you give people a sense? I've talked about it already at nauseum, so I'm not going to repeat mine, meaning in other episodes. But
yeah,
you started it. How did you start it? Obviously, your first customer came through you proactively. They came to you proactively. But then what? How are you getting more customers? How are you scaling it to the extent that you want to scale it? Like me, I don't want to do group coaching. I stay with 10 students and that's it. I have no interest in doing beyond that at a single time. What systems are you using? How did you even learn how to set up a virtual business like that, leveraging LinkedIn? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people listening for that. Like, if you guys did it, then I'm sure I can do it. How are you doing that? Like technically?
yeah. So if we rewind, right? So I guess when I was still employed, I might have worked with like two clients max, right, at a time.
Mm,
So far, 95% of all of my clients have come inbound through LinkedIn because funny enough, for like the business that I do, my business kind of sells itself, right? Because it's like I talk about personal branding, I write, people like how I write, and then if I'm targeting mostly B2B founders and execs, and I also talk about like the information that I had and my expertise, or at least my knowledge in B2B. So then mostly clients come through that.
mm-hmm,
In terms of how I'm scaling it and how I'm planning on scaling it, the idea is always to have a lean but an agency, right, of other writers. I have a
ah,
couple of writers that I have contracted, but if I don't need to, I don't use them. I
mm-hmm,
use a combination of Stripe, right, to collect payments,
mm-hmm,
FreshBooks for invoicing, a lot of where the content that I write and host it, and like how we're really making sure that I understand what a customer wants, etc. It's like Notion meets Google Docs.
mm-hmm,
There's a lot of ways I can optimize, and I'm still working on that. But right now it's not broken, right? But as the more it scales, the better it needs to be.
mm-hmm,
I meet with clients in the beginning a little more, but then after that, it's monthly strategy on content calls. I interview them,
mm-hmm.
call using also a tool called Fathom that transcribes everything. While I'm on the call, I also make notes, right? So if I was working on you and your brand, I'm like, how you're asking me questions, I'm usually on the other end. And I collect content that way, and then I'm taking notes, right? So I use it like quite a few tools to make my job easier. Yeah, and then
Nice.
yeah, if there's anything specific that you want me to address, let me know. But
No, I think that's good. And so I'm the same way. Mine's way like I think you have to do much more work up front with your clients. For me, it's I just have a Kajabi website, but Kajabi does a good job in organizing coaching students, what have you, and I can upload videos and things of that nature there. And then it's integrated with Stripe, so payments come through Stripe. And then I have Slack for a Trilifon chat group. So anybody who's come through coaching or at least consultation, we're all in that group together, because one of the biggest things people talk about is not having tribe, not having people like you and I there to be supportive, because status quo will pull you right back in right away. But mine is relatively simple. Yours is relatively simple. I just wanted you to give people an idea of those tools: Notion, Google Docs, Stripe, Fathom, and I'm sure there's a few others. But the point is, the barrier to entry is pretty much zero. You can just do it and course correct along the way. It sounds like you've done that as well.
a lot of course correcting and a lot of help as well, right? Like I really invest in coaching, so I know what you do is super powerful. You know, I've joined communities way back when Justin Welsh had
Yeah.
his community, right? I'm like the OG from the first cohort when back then I was like still employed, had this idea, which is like, what do I do?
Yeah.
But it's really important to be with other people that are thinking similarly to you because you
That's
feel
right.
less crazy. And yeah,
That's
I get
right.
the tribe thing because if you're trying to do it alone, it can be rough.
Yeah. It definitely. And if that was my biggest issue when I was going through my financial freedom journey, was I felt by myself all the time. I talk about entrepreneurial depression. It's so much easier to find people like you and I now because LinkedIn exists and other platforms exist. But back in 2002, 2003, 2004, I was just always sitting in the library by myself trying to figure stuff out. So it was a tough road. Um,
That's deep. Entrepreneurial depression. I think the fun,
yeah,
even though now it's even easy to find people on the same path, we still have to work better at talking about the things that are not going well. So the
yeah,
right now is like people love to talk about their highs, even in
yeah,
their like in
yeah,
their five.
yeah,
I'm like, come on,
yeah.
now everything can't be like this, you know. It's like
It can be tough. Which leads me to the next point. Probably the most important thing I wanted to just learn from you was how you made. I know now I understand you went from, I think, from Germany to Portugal,
yeah,
but just the emotions of that kind of shift. And I don't know if you knew anybody in Portugal or not. I am making my own shifts to Cyprus and Lebanon. And I call Cyprus and Lebanon my Mediterranean neighborhood because they're right next to each other by a 30-minute flight. So it's all the same to me, although culturally it's very different. What was it like for you? How do you even get the energy and I don't know, the courage to make that kind of jump and just be like, you know what? I've had enough of this. I'm going to build a whole new lifestyle in a new place.
yeah. So Portugal was somewhere that my first visit was 2017, and
Mm-hmm.
since then I would go back every year for any time frame between like a week to like 2 months. So I actually had been making friends all the way from 2018, and I had been keeping in contact with a few people. Some of them are like, you know, what you call digital nomads, which I don't love that term, that would like be here for maybe 5 to 6 months and then travel
Mm-hmm.
the rest of the year. So by the time I moved, I already had a pretty good circle of people I can like, you know, I really truly love to, you know, meet and whatever. So I
Yeah.
had,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
But the other part is have I can't say I've moved around a lot in my life, but quite a bit, and I've always been kind of adaptable. And this is not to say that I'm like this special snowflake. I'm not, but sometimes I've been known to make decisions, like pretty big ones, and be like, oh yeah, and everyone's like, oh wow. And I'm like, oh yeah, it is kind of, I guess, odd that I did it. So moving has never been super scary.
Mm-hmm.
My big And I guess what someone else could take away from that, or like if there's like a piece of advice I can give, is like, is it reversible? Is my big thing. Like,
Mhm.
when a decision is irreversible, then I guess you should take more time. And I also, I'm like, okay, I could always go back to Germany, but Germany was never home again, right? So
Right, right. You grew up in Ethiopia? You grew up in the state
Ethiopia,
in
yeah,
Ethiopia. Okay.
all the way until to college. So I knew that in comparison to Germany, which thank you Germany, you've done a lot for me, but culturally I feel much better in Portugal because I come from like a warmer country, like temperature wise and people wise,
Sure.
right? So like,
Sure. Yeah.
um, and I could always go back, and it's the same thing with like entrepreneurial path. Like when people are like, "You're so brave," I'm like, okay, I guess it's courageous, but I had some savings, I had like an income stream where I knew that I would be okay, and
Hmm.
what's the worst that could happen? I can go back to 9 to 5. Like if that's the worst case scenario. So
Hmm.
there's even I forget, like there's like a formula thing that you could do, which is like, what's the worst you could happen? You can like keep going
Yeah.
years, right? And
Yep.
I end up on the streets. Oh, and then you could like do it all. And I think you realize how it's not as scary as one may think. But if you think
Yeah.
of 2 seconds, you're like, oh, I could never. But
So when was the big, you said 13 months ago. Is your I don't know where your family is. Are they in Germany or are they in Ethiopia?
we'll see Ethiopia. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like you had a ton of family in Germany to hold you back per se.
No. I'm also
Um,
like no kids so far, like all of these things. So I'm very, it's like I can't tell people it's easy if you have a family, and all
right.
of the like roots and you have to sell a home. Things are more complicated. But I know people that have done something very similar in
Oh, a bunch of my
Portugal,
coaching students right now are out and about
you know?
practicing life in different countries or different cities,
Yeah, which I
leveraging
love,
world schooling, homeschooling, unschooling, virtual schooling. There's so many ways to go about it now.
which I love. Because now
Yeah.
I have more people to connect. Because usually before, like in my colleagues or people, and I say people like, but you're like so wild and free, I'm like, okay, but now I have friends I can connect them with that have done it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all about what your mindset allows you to like think.
Absolutely. And how are you? And let me preface that, right? You're 13 months in. I'm curious where your mind state and set was 3 months in, 5 months in. Man, I can't believe I made this shift, or I feel lonely here, or I'm struggling with A, B, and C. Because it's always like it's the Instagram story, right? Oh man, she moved to Portugal. And I'm telling people like I don't have an Instagram story relative to Cyprus and Lebanon. It's wonderful, but I'm going through a lot of ups and downs, emotions of creating new lifestyle there. Sometimes feeling like an imposter. Like let's say if I'm driving around or what have you, it's not like I go to work 9 to 5 at a building where I'm interacting with people all the time. I work from a laptop, so it's very different. It can be very insular. Have you gone through any level of emotions of what am I doing here? What decision did I make, etc.? Just so people have a sense.
100%. And
I thought you
100,
might say that.
you know, I think entrepreneurship, first of all, is just like an emotional roller coaster where sometimes I'm like, I'm on top of the world. I get it. It makes so much sense. I'm doing the right thing. And other times I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know anything.
Yeah.
And right now, thank you for asking. I am feeling slightly overwhelmed because I have so many interesting opportunities I could pursue, actually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm feeling both. I'm not doing enough. I'm not amounting to the potential that I know I have.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of having shiny object syndrome for sure.
Bouncing from idea to idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I know that I have to go back to baseline and actually really clear my mind. Like, I just came back from dinner or lunch with a friend, and I was telling her like, I think I actually need a break. A
Mm-hmm.
break of like, where things are running in the background, but I need to like think. Um, in terms of Portugal, I haven't had a lot of like what have I done moments. There are always
Mm-hmm.
things where I'm like I miss home, which is Ethiopia, which is never Germany, so I'll go to visit. You know, it's tough when you don't know the language. I'm someone that really values language, and um
Are you
not
learning Portuguese then?
I am. I started
Okay.
like a couple months ago. And
Okay.
it's not a brag. I speak 4 languages, and I even managed to learn German. So
Nice.
finally, but now I'm like, I'm getting that period where I'm like having the itch of I don't speak the language, and it's like annoying me sometimes. Even
Mm-hmm.
though Lisbon
Mm-hmm.
is the
Mm-hmm.
best place for that because very easy to get around. I don't know how it is in Lebanon or Cyprus, like language wise. If English is fine all the
I'm
time.
okay. I'm okay. And I'm a French speaker, and Lebanon is a former French colony, so I do okay.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's for sure happening. Where you can feel like you should be doing a lot, and I've never been the most patient person, so and I know that's something I've been wanting to work on, right? So just cultivating patience and being like,
Yeah.
every season is not meant for growth as well or for scaling, right? Sometimes it's
Yep.
just about maintaining, about rest, which is like, as much I live in Portugal and like August, I was like, I'll take time off. Barely took any time off, even when I was traveling for fun.
Yeah.
Fun,
Yeah.
right? So, like,
Yeah.
it's really hard to sometimes turn your brain off, which is what I'm like working on doing.
I want to give you some, because I know people are going to resonate with what you just said, and thank you for being honest about the emotions of jumping to a new place. Someone was pinging me about this because I was struggling. I don't know. I called them. I think I was in Beirut. I called them and I was just kind of struggling with what I was doing there and things of that nature. So it's good to hear it from somebody else, but I want to throw some stuff out at you and for the people who are listening. The first thing is I put out a newsletter, and newsletter 14 just went out this week. And it was about the fact that reality is negotiable. Uh, if you're looking for the newsletter, go to trylifeon.com. It should hit the newsletter page in a week or two. It gets delayed going there. But one of the things that I have come across is the fact that reality is negotiable, from reading Tim Ferriss in the 4 Hour Work Week. And one of the quotes in there that really stuck with me is, stress test boundaries and experiment with impossibles. You'll quickly discover most limitations are fragile collections of socially reinforced rules that you can break at any time. And I say that because there's all kinds of socially reinforced rules about your corporate journey, your entrepreneurial journey, and now your personal journey of where you are supposed to live and how you are supposed to be. And you are steadily breaking them down one by one, which is a beautiful thing. And I think anybody can. And then the second thing that I want to call out is, you said about the shiny object syndrome. I totally get it. And a lot of my coaching students have that as well. I have it as well. And the way that I try to help people, and I'm going to point people to episode 23 of the Try Life On podcast, which is helping someone get back to baseline. They rewrote what their ideal day was, or their perfect day. So they described and they wrote down their perfect day in extreme detail. Then they wrote down their goals relative to time, financial, geographic, purpose, and relationship freedom. Then we figured out what the blockers were to those goals. So that's step 3. And then we just created the action items to get rid of those blockers. That was step 4. I think sometimes when we have that shiny object stuff going on, and I have it a lot, I just go back to, why am I doing this in the first place? What is it that I actually wanted out of this effort? And for me, it has to deal with lifestyle now. My foot is off the business gas, if you will. Like, I've built enough business at this point. I think I'm more in neutral. So if you come to me with an awesome opportunity in Portugal and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, I would do it, but I wouldn't be the tip of the spear chasing it, right? I wouldn't be the first person. I think we truly got to get back to what is it that we were trying to accomplish in the first place with what we got going on. So that might be something of help. Just as a last point, again, the listenership, at least all the feedback that I get from folks who listen to this podcast and read the newsletters and all that, they're all in some form or fashion trying to figure out a way to try life on. And that might be within their company or external to their company, or within their family or away from their family. I even had a couple reach out who were separating, almost ready to get a divorce, but they want to help each other, which is awesome. They want to help each other try life on in unique ways. So they're supporting each other's lifestyle design journeys. Since you are on one hell of a journey, what would be one piece of advice you would give anyone who's listening relative to having courage to going to try life on their way, whether it be jumping to entrepreneurial, staying within corporate, jumping to a new country or not? You've been through a lot. So what piece of advice would you give?
I guess in a way it's try to avoid being an all or nothing person, which is funny. It's the same advice I would give to myself. So if you're curious about being an entrepreneur, but you're like, I could never because it's too hard, I don't have the skills, how could you charge something for $10 so that you can at least see what it looks like to be paid, whatever, or like $100, whatever it is. If you would love to live abroad, but your life is too complicated, your private schooling, whatever it is, could you negotiate with like your boss somehow, or even if you're based in the States, to like combine a vacation with like 2 weeks remote working?
That's it. Yeah.
Like a 2 week thing and like find ways where you can feel that you see the light a little bit. Because then what happens is your brain starts to see options and it starts creating new pathways, right? And I wish I would love to study the brain. That's like something that really happens. Like if you start thinking, what are the ways, what businesses could I have? You will start seeing patterns.
Yeah, that's it.
My advice would be just seek ways to try new things, try little things, and try life on.
Yeah, and it's experimentation. And I'll add, that's wonderful, by the way, thank you, from someone who's truly doing it. And the way that I articulate what you said is by encouraging people to go practice life. So the past 2 months, late June into late August, early September, I was living in Lebanon. I was practicing how to live there, practicing how to get back to my son in DC when he needs me, because he's only 10 years old and I will not raise him, right? So I have to get into a rhythm of being by his side. But Lebanon is not an easy place to live. So you have to get used to the nuances, get used to the fact that I can't use a debit card there. I have to have cash with me at all times. I have to have a digital SIM card because my US SIM card won't work there. But life is something that you can actually go practice. And I agree with you. Now that I've done that, there are different pathways in my mind of what I have the ability to do. I mean, if I can exist in a place like Lebanon and make it, I can do anything, anywhere, and it starts to become easier and easier. I think that's the point I want people to take from this conversation, is that you just started to try different things, trying to experiment, trying life on in different ways. And we can still have like doubts and I'm not sure, and let me go try this thing, and shiny object syndrome. So what? That's the beauty of life. That's the journey. That's the way you feel your life book. And ever since I've been watching you fill your life book on social media and what have you, I wanted to track you down and say I'm an admirer. I can't wait to have a cup of coffee with you out in Portugal. It is just a DC direct flight away through travel hacking. That'll be easy to do because I know you're there now. But thank you for coming on. You are going to give people a ton of hope, and I hope they reach out to you. If someone does want to reach out to you, what would be the best way, whether it's for your copy or for your writing services or for any reason?
First of all, thank you for having me on. Love this. Big fan of you. If anyone wants to find me, LinkedIn is the best place. So I'm sure you'll have it, but just like Belen Wagaw, feel free to DM me. If it feels like I could help you with your personal brand, you can also schedule a call. So LinkedIn.
I love it. Thanks, Belen. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Maurice.
Okay. Hey guys, this is Maurice, host of the Try Life On podcast, and thank you for listening to another episode. I hope you are finding it useful in helping you design your own lifestyle that you don't need a vacation from. If that's the case, please consider dropping a review for me, whether in Apple, iTunes, or in Spotify. Drop a review, put some stars on it, give me some feedback on how I can make the podcast better, what information you are looking for. I am doing my best to get information to you on the Try Life On principles, the 5 freedoms, how to build lifestyle, travel hacking, all of it. And I want to do it for you. So please do a review for me. And until next time, my name is Maurice Philogene, and this is the Try Life On podcast. Peace.